You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody, the podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. This is it, the third installment of the three-part series for the mayoral election of Eagle. Now, again, I did offer interviews to all four candidates, but Captain Mark did decline. Quick note again, none of the candidates knew what the other people were saying. So Brad Pike did not know what Stan Ridgeway or Mayor Jason Pierce said in the interviews. They also didn't know what questions I was going to ask. Very important that you understand that. Nobody knew what was coming. Quick update on the podcast. It can also be found on Apple Podcasts. So just open that purple Apple Podcast app, search up The Ranch Podcast, and there it will be. I'd appreciate an awesome review if you have the time. And if you are watching on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the subscribe and the thumbs up button. I would greatly appreciate it. A quick thank you to our sponsor, Blake Brands. Blake is a reverse mortgage specialist. So if you have questions about a reverse mortgage, like who retains ownership, if the proceeds are taxed, or even does the home have to be owned free and clear in order to get a reverse mortgage, call Blake Brands. Again, Blake with CMG Mortgage, he can answer your questions. My guest today is the president of the Eagle City Council. He has served on several different local governing bodies, including some in his former state, California, and then he got involved when he came up here. He is supported by all kinds of first responders groups, is a champion for first responders, and has decided that he wants to run for mayor instead of running again for city council. He was wonderful to speak with, and now looking back at all three interviews, the people that are voting for mayor in the city of Eagle really have their work cut out for them and figure out who to actually vote for. So, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Council President Brad Pike. Here we are, Brad. Here we are, in the flesh.
Right.
First off, thank you for coming. I was blown away the last few days. We were just chatting about everything on Nextdoor, how you have, Charlie Bond saying, and again, I don't know true or false any of the things Charlie's saying, but I'm just so pleased that we can sit down and have an actual conversation, because regardless of what Charlie is saying, I think taking to social media and trying to write out these like large, thoughtful pieces, it's just the most ineffective way to communicate. So being able to sit down with you and actually talk through stuff, I'm very pleased you came. Thank you for coming.
Well, Matt, I'm happy to be here, obviously, because we're supposed to be talking about government for the public, and that's kind of all I'm after right now. Social media has its place for some people, I guess, but I'm trying to stay clear of all that. I'm very computer illiterate to begin with. So Facebook's about the max for me, but I'm not even watching that right now because I'm focused on what the needs of the public is going to be here in the future. And my target is to be the next mayor of Eagle.
That's awesome. My Facebook, you mentioned my dad. God bless the man. I love my dad, but I had to stop watching because he just goes on these like multiple page tirades on Facebook. And again, I don't even know if the things he's saying are correct or not, but it's like, I can't with this right now. This is not, if you want to like get lunch and sit down and talk about this, which is, I think, something that I feel like before social media, you really had to have face-to-face conversations with people. And I think that bridged a lot of the gaps and helped resolve a lot of the misunderstandings that people had, because it's like, well, no, hang on, let me correct you on that. This is actually what happened. You're like, oh, okay. I had no idea. But on Facebook or social media, some person says something and then it's like, it's a dumpster fire. It's like, they're like, you're probably the type of person who punches your pony too. It's like, what are you saying? Yeah. Anyway.
No, absolutely. And I'll interject a little bit on that. The art of communication with social media is lost, right? There's the sender, there's the receiver, and there's the message in between, and then you interact with it. I very much have always been the type of person that if we have a problem, let's get together. If we have a mediator with us, that's fine, but let's solve the problem. I'm a problem solver. My whole career's been solving people's problems, and through government or public safety, that was my world. But the thing is, communication, once it's lost, it becomes divisive, and then we have the peanut galleries interject, and people are going to support whatever narrative is out there that fits their agenda. My thing is, I'm just after the facts. If there's something that's incorrect, or if I learn something new, I'm the first one to fall on the sword and go, you know what, Matt? I'm wrong there. And I'm following the sword. teach me. I'll be the sponge, and you squeeze out your knowledge to me, and we're both better off because of that communication and education component.
Right. And just sitting down, and again, I did offer these interviews to all four, Captain Mark, you, Stan, and Mayor Pierce. And Captain Mark did not want to do an interview, which was fine. But I just sitting down with Stan and Jason, now I get to sit with you. The amount I've learned from these long conversations, it's just wild. And I don't know if there's another way that I could have learned all of this from just one person, right? It's communicating. It's communicating with a wide variety of people that have different perspectives. And again, it's a really cool thing that we get to do this.
Well, it's a necessity, not just a cool I mean, I agree it's cool, but it's a necessity for people to understand, because they all know they have their levels of communication. Each person does, and wherever they exploit that level is their own doing. It's not mine. I can't force you to say something, So it's that interaction between us that I find important.
Right. Well, here we are. We're about to interact. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, first off, man, there's so much we have to go over. Let's just start with basics. Law enforcement. All right. This seems to be one of the things that has really taken over the conversation with this mayoral election. Hit me with it. The background leading up to it, where we are, how we got here, the whole thing.
Well, that segue into that, Matt, is awesome, because for the last 4 years, once I was elected, I come from the public safety world, so I started seeing deficiencies in all public safety as we grew the population. So I started asking questions. Hey guys, we're behind the 8 ball, especially in law enforcement, and we need to be proactive. We need to have some kind of strategic plan put in place. I may not have said those words strategic place out in the budget hearings, but I did say 4 different times in all the budgets we've been associated with that we need to get ourselves out of this deficiency as we grow the population. And my big stance was that we have growth going on within this community. And I'm going to illustrate is, look at the city of Eagle today as the flats. And then we have the hills. We have Valnova to the over on Highway 16, and we have Avimor now on Highway 55. The joke is it looks like a Mickey Mouse head if you look at it. We got this big round city, and then we have 2 big ears that are attached to us now. The growth, the urban sprawl that is actually technically what that is. One entity, Valnova, which was Spring Valley back in the day, we had no control over that. That was already annexed in prior to us, and the plat and the whole basic master plan was already out there. And we are now the recipients of helping them manage how that growth gets done. And that's on one side, on the Highway 16 with Valnova. Avimor, in my opinion, once those 2 entities doubled the size of our city, that red flag really went off in my head as far as emergency response preparedness and ability to serve all people. Once you incorporate into a city limits and you expand it out, that whole responsibility is now under whatever the contract or the city services are. So I'm a fire commissioner on the Eagle Fire Commission, our district. So they're already in, let's use Avimor for example, they're already in our district. So we've been serving them the whole time. Avimor was very good with giving us impact fees on a volunteer basis back in the day. So there was never any deficiency for that service level, because impact fees provide you the opportunity to build capital and equipment, right? But that's the only place that those impact fees can go to. So in the future, there will be a fire station up there. We have to get to about 2,500 homes or 200 emergency calls a year to trigger that need to be able to facilitate services up there. So now it's just a response from the valley floor, the flats here, up to them to service those people. With the police part of it, the contract is we only have 25 people on the contract. That includes the chief. And when you have 14 total, but you have 12 patrol people, 2 sergeants, and then you have 2 motor cops, which do the motorcycles. They're out patrolling for traffic. And you have a set team that we helped implement that in our first year after we got elected for special enforcement teams that does the green belt and parks. we're still very deficient. We have detectives as well, but once you incorporate back to the city's responsibility, everything within those boundaries is now the responsibility of the police contract with Ada County sheriffs. So we're going further and further and further away from hitting our target, which we're trying to get. I'm just asking for 1 officer per 1,000 people. The comp plan, you'll hear a lot about the comp plan, says 0.71 officers. We're the only city, there's 3 contracts, CUNA, Star, and Eagle, that are contracting with Ada County sheriffs. With that said, those 2 cities are being proactive with getting additional law enforcement as their population grows. I've been touting this for the last 4 years. It's on video. There's segments that are already recorded where you can hear me speak on that, and I can get that to anybody that wants to know where do I go and listen to you? I'll have that available. But Star, let's use our neighbor Star for example right now.
If I may ask just real quick, and I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but a lot has been made out of this ratio of 1 per 1,000. Okay. And a lot of people have said, hey, we're really falling behind on this metric. But then other people are saying, okay, but when you take the number of calls, the type of calls, do we really have crime happening and then people waiting for an hour for the police service to show up? And one of the arguments has been in general, Eagle is a safer population base. So, you don't have as many criminals in Eagle causing local crime. For instance, you consider like Oakland, right? Mm-hmm. There's crime in Oakland that happens from Oakland citizens, mm-hmm. right? I mean, it's a dangerous place to live, or another place like Antioch, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Where I was living in California, in Danville, you didn't have a lot of crime from the Danville citizens. That doesn't mean you didn't have people coming from Oakland, which mm-hmm. you did, which was mm-hmm. not great, right? But again, there wasn't a lot of locally sponsored crime. Some people have made the argument that Eagle is very similar. So whereas you have other places that have greater amounts of law enforcement, they need that because there's more locally sponsored crime, whereas Eagle doesn't have that. What do you think about that argument? I
do not agree with that argument at all, because you need to be proactive and you have to be a deterrent for the criminals to stay out of your community. We've had the highest level of crime you can experience in the city of Eagle this year alone. We've had murders, we've had attempted murders, we've had murder-suicides, we've had rapes, we've had all the top-notch ones, period. To say that we don't have that happening in Eagle is having your head in the sand, in my opinion. We had 621 crimes in 2022. That means basically they're not quite 2 a day, but think about it. You think this quaint little nice town of Eagle, and I'll go on the record, we are a safe community, but it's subjective. If you're comparing it to LA, Chicago,
sure,
Oakland, I mean,
Baltimore,
it's not a fair, it's not a fair comparison, because what our responsibility is, the mayor's role is to keep the general welfare of their community. That means all tangents of that. So me being in the public safety world, I already see what's happening ahead of time, and there's precursors out there that's happening. 5 years ago, you didn't see graffiti. We have graffiti. You didn't see drugs happening in the high schools. There's drugs happening in the high schools. You didn't have the fentanyl scare. We have fentanyl scare. We didn't have heroin. We've had heroin the whole time.
Wow.
So there's things that people don't know that's under the surface that's happening.
This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're a business, either big or small, MTU Studios can help you fill your content needs. MTUstudios.com. Check us out.
And what my point is, we need to be proactive. As we grow, we're just getting further and further. So there's going to be a time when even Eagle switches and all of a sudden we're playing catch up and we're chasing crime instead of being proactive with taking care of crime. And I've got 3 solutions, funding solutions, because everybody says, Brad, that's great. Okay, thanks for being proactive with this. But where are you getting the money? It's called reallocating your general fund to the appropriate needs of the community first. And then the wants will come with the trickle down through the economy. It'll happen. And I want just as much for your quality of life than anybody else. I want the beautiful parks. I want the pathways. I want the sidewalks. I want everything that everybody came here and the quaintness. Okay, my responsibility is the primary protection of these people. If I may, I'll use the book of Psalms as my guide. You care for the people, you protect them, and you lead with humility. Those are the three things that my cornerstones of why I'm in politics to begin with. So the responsibility doesn't lie on somebody else. You can't cast the blame. It's the sheriff's fault. It's the county commissioner's fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's our fault. We're the ones that are growing the population. Cities are designed to grow population. Okay, the infill is enough. We've got a ton of infill development going on. And then you add out urban sprawl to the equation. And one of my biggest things, I have to worry about the officer safety as well in this element. If you have one guy or officer, man or woman, by themselves on a call for a delayed amount of time, that is not a safety factor that I'm interested in even thinking about.
Right.
I want to up their level of protection just as much as the people that they're serving.
So, and again, just to be clear, your position is, hey, look, if we leave the situation with law enforcement as kind of the status quo, then what's going to happen is these undercurrents of crime or precursors to crime, right? Like soft flags going up. It's like drugs in high school and different styles of more aggressive and violent crimes and things of that nature. Those will continue to increase. And then by the time we act, we'll be behind the eight ball. We'll be trying to catch up.
Absolutely. That's what I said, behind the eight ball. That's right. You're saying exactly what I said.
So instead of doing that, to fund it, we need to take money from the general fund, ensure a higher level of safety, and that will make our community further desirable, which will attract more residents, attract more business, attract more appropriate development, and that will pay for itself several times over.
Absolutely. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head with the bringing the revenue in. You want people that are trying to bring businesses into your community to have a confidence in that level of service, because that's one of the issues with insurance. They'll say, well, what kind of crime rate do you have if they're bringing a business in?
Right.
Unfortunately, we've had some thefts, some burglaries, not robberies, but burglaries in some people's businesses already. And it's not acceptable. We're not going to be able to, there's evil out there, Matt. We're not going to be able to 100% squash crime. There's no way, and I'm not even alluding to the fact that that's going to happen. What I'm saying is right now that we've expanded to probably about 37,000 people with the influx of the residents up in Avimor, we are going backwards in our ratios. And the comp plan, yes, the 2017, the comp plan was looked at, and we did have a panel of citizens and other stakeholders come in and reassess that. 2022, every 5 years, you're kind of doing it. Okay, it's 2023 going on 2024 fiscal year starting October 1. Where's that comp plan adjustment? I don't see it. So we should be proactively looking at it. The citizens are expecting leaders to lead. Okay, and you'll hear that I haven't been effective for my term here. In whose opinion? Why are the citizens agreeing that public safety? Hey, because they didn't know. Ignorance is bliss, right? I mean, if you don't know, you're just doing your daily thing. I want people to be able to do their daily thing, go from point A to point B without worrying about, are we a safe community? I don't want to put the fear of God in these people and thinking, oh my gosh, we're going down, we're becoming the cesspool. Absolutely not. We're the most affluent city in the whole state, and it's an average of per income per household. Most affluent city. Why don't they get the quality of life that other communities have? And why are other communities pushing for that level of service to be up? And I'll go back to Star real quick. That's where I divert. Yeah. Okay, cool. And that's fine, because they've taken a proactive approach to bringing their law enforcement services up to par. Well, they have roughly 17,000 people. Now they have 17 officers. Guess what ratio that hit? 1 per 1,000. We have 25 people, including the chief, okay, and we have 37,000 people to serve. Relying on the unincorporated sheriff's responsibility, they all come to help each other. It's called mutual aid. They all help each other out when there's a big call. But when we have a large event that's happened 3 times in our own city, once in Avimor, and all the resources are put in those scenes right then, who's protecting the rest of the community? We're relying on mutual aid from other agencies that tell me they don't have crimes going on. Tell me Boise and Meridian, other places don't have crimes as well, and the responsibilities that they're supposed to be taking care of the people that pay taxes for their level of service.
I see what you're saying. So because the Ada County Sheriff's Department and those officers, those deputies get drawn on to address the larger events, because it sounds like you're saying Eagle doesn't have the appropriate ratio. Because of that situation, other areas are left unprotected because they're drawn into our community.
Absolutely. It's an ebb and flow. Public safety is an ebb and flow. If there's a large fire, a lot of resources go to that area. Brush fires, big structure fires, whatever. Sure. But you got to put the law enforcement component in there, the EMS component in there as well. When you have a large fire, for example, EMS has to be there, police have to be there. So those resources are pulled into a fire, and everybody's going, don't you just have fire engines show up there? No, it's a whole team concept. I'm a team player. I've been a team player my whole life, through college baseball to fire service. Every component of my life is involved with teamwork. So my platform is leadership through partnership. That means we're going to partner, and we're going to make this happen correctly for the public. And we can't be selfish with our resources either, because mutual aid has to go both ways. So if there's an event happening in Garden City, Star, Meridian, or Boise, and our units are close, of course they're responding to that emergency. But there's that ebb and flow, and the people, the captains and the battalion chiefs, they're responsible to make sure the rest of the city has some kind of coverage. But right now we don't have enough people to have some kind of coverage. Every agency is deficient in staffing. Law enforcement has taken such a beating over the last decade that nobody wants to be a law enforcement anymore. That's a sad situation for us, because somebody has to be out there. Somebody has to be protecting the public. Somebody has to be the heroes for us. And I think that we need to bring them in and allow them to do their job. But we want them to know that my thing is, everybody says, oh, I got your back. We back the blue. My philosophy is, I'm standing side by side with you, Matt, in the blue. Or sometimes I'll step in front of you to protect you. None of this standing behind. The thing is, to protect somebody, it means their back. Right. But I'm saying, no, we're going to arm in arm do this together in a partnership thing. So when these services are deficient, we're going to find solutions to it. You're coming to the table. I'm coming to the table. All the parties that are involved come to the table. We find the solution together. And it comes down to the dollar. It's funding. There's no way I'm going to ever try to increase anybody's taxes to increase the level of service. So which means you're stuck with the reallocation of your funds. So some projects, capital projects, other funding elements that come, we have three tax revenues that come into us: the state, liquor, and property tax. Out of those three right there, which one do you think would be most appropriate to allocate funds for law enforcement?
I'm going to go ahead and say liquor.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, absolutely. So you reallocate those liquor taxes to appropriately staff law enforcement. That's just my thing, I guess you could say.
Sure.
I haven't heard any other leader in any government say, hey, wait, yeah, liquor has a connection with crime, DUIs, wrecks, all kinds of negative social things.
Yeah, I think the saying goes, for most people, I didn't do something stupid every time I drank, but every time I did something stupid, I definitely had been drinking.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we abolish alcohol by any
stretch.
No.
Yeah, but like, I mean, if you're talking, like, what are the odds there's going to be a completely sober person wandering around like an idiot at midnight in the middle of downtown? It's like, that's pretty slim. But I mean, people have too many drinks, and I'm not saying I haven't consumed too much alcohol at times, but that leads to lesser great decisions, which is sometimes.
Well, it's called impairment. So when your mind is impaired, it doesn't matter if it's drugs, alcohol, stress, whatever. If you're impaired, that means you're not functioning in the normal set that you would be. So and then law enforcement has to take appropriate actions to correct that out there, so you're not running in the middle of the street and you're getting yourself hurt, right?
Yeah, right.
So so that's where I'm at with that.
Right. Okay. So you talk about partnerships quite a bit, which I have a great appreciation for. Talk to me about business partnerships, because the city of Eagle is growing. Everyone understands this, and God bless it. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to be. My boys go to the schools in West Ada. I mean, I live in unincorporated, but man, it's great here. Talk to me about growing revenue for the city, not by increasing taxes on citizens or property taxes or anything, but talk to me about attracting more business partnerships so the city itself gets a larger tax base. There's more room for mom and pop shops, the whole thing.
Yeah. Great segue again into my economic component of this whole purpose. Of course, public safety is the only reason that I even stepped into the race, is because I want to fix the deficiency there. But economics has to be hand in hand with that. Bringing larger, not these corporate, not Amazon or any of these big, Facebook things. Right. None of that. What I'm saying is
actual,
you need viable quality businesses coming in for your anchor, your long-term anchor revenue that could come in.
What are some of those businesses, if I may ask?
Intuit is a great example. Right. Pet IQ is another great example. You can have other businesses that maybe I'd have to see what they want to bring in, but those level of services, of course, IT is a big thing in everybody's world right now. So if some corporate IT business had something, we have a vacant building where Intuit used to be, maybe entertain somebody that wants to come in and establish a company, a corporation there. They have plenty of parking. There's not an issue with that. It's already set. But the thing is, I want to put the welcome mat out for businesses, and I'm talking even light industry, but we're getting squeezed out of our property right now. And so when we rezone things from ag to residential or mixed use or something like that. So I'd like to be focusing on maybe the mixed use component where you can have somebody's business wants to come into Eagle. It may not be that big right now, but I'll use Pet IQ as the example. It was a small in-city local business expanded to what you see today out on Eagle and 44, and they have a sister building they want to build right next to it, so they're going to expand double. And so those are encouraging things. So when you talk about keeping anchor businesses that provide long-term revenue, those are the people that I think we need to partner with. And right now it's hypothetical because I don't know who's asking to come into the city.
Sure.
I do know that there's been businesses that want to come into the city in the past, and they were told no. I don't know who told them no, and I don't know why. So the thing is, my thing with if I'm the next mayor, that I would say we have an open welcome mat to you, Mr. and Mrs. Business, if I can spit that out right. Let's have a discussion about that and see how we fit in your needs and you fit in our needs.
Right.
And back to the partnership part of it. So we have a conversation, and then we find solutions to each other together. And this actually brings in even more people in the partnership. We have to talk to the schools. We have to talk to the sewer district. We have to talk to the water. We have to talk to ACHD, ITD, Sheriff's Department, weed abatement. We have 10 taxing districts that we all pay taxes to. Most people don't even know where the money goes. It goes to the county or state. I don't know. I mean, I've asked people, where's your tax dollars go? I don't know. Well, there's a list there that we all get in our tax assessments, and it says right there where percentages and dollars go to. So I'd like to educate those people and have those people on those taxing agencies have a seat at the table where we're making decisions on the growth of the city. All of them have a say in it. I've already had a conversation with our superintendent for West Ada County School District. I said, are you getting invited to meetings when we have a development coming in? So you could tell us, yes, this works, or that no, Brad, that's way too many people. I mean, we can't accommodate those students. Or we have people that'll donate in a development agreement. I'm going to donate you land for an elementary school. Okay, the land is great, but what's the reality of it? Where's the school? Where's the teachers? We don't have the infrastructure set up to, and then developer doesn't have to build the building. I would like them to build the buildings first, and then they get their impact fees through development back the other way. We're kind of flipped this way a little bit.
Yeah, especially in Dry Creek Ranch, we have a very similar situation. There's a 7-acre plot of land that was supposed to be deeded to West Ada, and very fortunately, they did modify the requirement so it could be deeded to West Ada or to a charter organization. So that's great because again, if West Ada says, hey, look, we're 10 plus years out from developing this, and there's a charter school that wants to get something in sooner to take pressure off of all of the surrounding schools, That's a great thing, but we're still stuck with the bill of building the actual school. So if it were the responsibility of, say, Boise Hunter to develop the community and develop the school, like build the actual building, that would be obviously get something off the ground and take pressure off West Ada to come up with the funding and whatnot.
Yeah, it would to a certain situation. Here's the problem. Public schools have to offer public schools to everybody, and we all pay taxes to West Ada County School District, for example, here. My kids went to private school, but I knew that everybody wasn't going to private school, so I've never balked at the fact I had to pay taxes for public school. I mean, I went to public school and private school. I mean, when did we have this segregation of, if you're not paying your taxes, I mean, you start getting into the mud a little bit, so you start taking revenue away from the kids that they don't go to private school. Their families are not fortunate enough to put them in private schools, so you're going to take money away from the public to the private school. I want the charter schools to be self-sufficient. I want private schools to be self-sufficient and everything, but I also have to be sensitive to the fact that not everybody wants to go to a private or charter school.
You kind of lost me here a little bit.
Sorry,
how are we taking tax revenue if somebody has a charter school that they're going to, or a
they don't take
taxes
for that. Yeah.
Right. So what do you mean? You think that the student who's not fortunate enough to afford the private school gets?
We have to provide a school for them. Right.
Oh,
we have to provide public school for everybody. Sure. And so even if one child is going to public school up from Avimor, for example.
Sure.
Okay, we still have to have a bus that goes up and picks up the public school kid and brings them back into whatever school, Boise or West Ada County. So, yeah, sorry for the confusion on that.
It's okay.
Yeah, my point is we all pay for public schools. And then your enhanced part of it is if you put your child into a private or charter school,
right? Or you homeschool them,
or a whole school.
And it's my understanding that homeschoolers get a certain stipend from the state to help with supplies and whatnot.
Yeah, the supply element. Right, so that's that the impacts on having private school. You get those monies back to your household to provide the materials.
Right, for homeschool.
Yeah,
not
for
private
homeschool.
School.
Absolutely. Yeah, for homeschool.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry. I mean,
no.
I don't want to confuse you on that.
No, I 100%. I get it. And so going back to the larger businesses, what so much is talked about with attracting larger businesses, but when I drive through downtown, and let's say like historic downtown, down near the Rembrandt and stuff, it's the small businesses that seem to be the ones that occupy so much of the land, right? And Pet IQ is great, nothing against them at all, but over near Rib Shack, it's like how many businesses do you have just in that parking lot, and then the Hope Blooms Flower parking lot? You got 3 there, and then 3
Probably
or 4 there.
3 dozen.
Yeah, right. So I was speaking with a gal who owns Hope Bloom Flowers, and she says, "Look, great business. She loves what she does, but she says she's outgrown the spot and had outgrown it years ago, and there's just nothing else available." Yeah. The problem is, to make something else available, you have to do developments, right? So you have across from, let's say Bodacious Pig, you have that development going in where you'll have commercial on the bottom, and then some
private sector building the community,
right. But I don't think people love that idea. I think they like the small town feel, but they also want more services. How do we balance that? How do we partner with the small businesses that need more space and growing room, offering more spaces than, again, for budding businesses or businesses that would like to start but don't have space, but still keep the small town feel? Because again, development, right? The city's growing, the demands of the population are growing. They want, more restaurants or services, whatever it is. Right. But we need space for those things if we're going to keep that tax revenue in Eagle. Because as of now, I want to go bowling, I got to go to Big Al's. There's not I'm not going bowling in the city of Eagle, right? And I'm not advocating for a bowling alley necessarily.
Ice rinks and bowling alleys.
We're losing a lot of tax revenue to small businesses that aren't located in Eagle. How do we get space for those businesses?
There's only one way to do it, and that's actually the way that's being done on the corner. Unfortunately, it's going to have a new aesthetics to the downtown. But when we first moved here 12 years ago, I went to the downtown and I saw dirt on the main corner of Eagle, dirt lots. And I was thinking, wow, what's going on here? Talk about blight. It's just not an attractive first impression when you come into a city of the wealth and the desirability that Eagle has. So some of those buildings, and people don't understand, these buildings have been standing for decades. The ones that were torn down, they had issues. They had physical, structural issues.
Sure.
So the people that bought the area, and by the way, part of that structure is the old Wild West restaurant. He partners with that development there. So he's going to have something that's new, state of the art, and it will bring in and attract more people into the downtown community for restaurants. Now, when you have your own small business, you have to compete with everybody else, right? But providing ample parking, we did a parking study you've heard about. There is parking right now, believe it or not, in the downtown. It's just not allocated. We haven't striped it to a position where people know where to park, that kind of stuff. Right now, there is an issue with construction going on, but that's growth pains. You do addition to your house. It disrupts your whole household when you do an addition. Sure. So look at it from we're disrupting our household right now to provide an additional something that's going to bring in more revenue to the community. Sure. It's going to provide opportunity through the Urban Renewal Agency to use the separation of value dollars and put it into other places that can grow as well. One of the problems with the old style of downtown is the zoning. We hodgepodge the zoning. This is no slam to anybody in the past. We grew out of the city downtown quicker than we thought we were going to do. So we have mixed zoning things. We have automotive. We have senior center. We have mom and pop shops all within their same. We have a power plant all within proximity of each other. These zonings you need light industry to be in one zone. It's a safer environment for the public. It's a safer environment for public safety to go. They know if they're going into a light industry area, collision service, auto body services. Sure. Everything's all in one spot. You kind of know where that zone is, but you don't mix the zones. And right now downtown we have mixed zones that people don't know what to do with. So a lot of those buildings are not. They're not going to stand forever, right? So you have to look at it. If you want more viable downtown, it's the aesthetics that I think people are looking at, the quaintness of what the facades look like when you come downtown, this historic look. We only have 6 historical buildings in the whole city, so everything else is just old. I mean, but if you have
everything else is just old.
Yeah, knob and tube.
Good.
You have foundation. Have mold issues. I mean, the owners of those buildings are going, I need to be able to do something with it. Now, the people that are on the west side of State and Eagle Road, they don't feel like they're part of the downtown anyhow. Back 4 years ago, and I'll give you a little insight on what's going on, I was the only person that walked every business, that whoever was open, Hope Bloom was one of them, and I said, hi, my name is Brad Pike. I'm running for city council. I said, I'd like to know what your needs and deficiencies, pros and cons to the city.
Right. What are your pain points? What's going on?
And everybody on the west side said they did not feel part of downtown. They felt like the disconnected stepchild. They were talking about flower pots not even being on the street lights. We're trying to remedy that, but you have a lot of newer buildings, new commercial retail on that side than you do the downtown, because the downtown between Stearman and Eagle Road are the old buildings, and they've just remodeled them. Every downtown has the remodeled old houses, and they're like insurance buildings or lawyers' facilities, offices. They look nice because they take the money and they made them look better. It doesn't mean that the insides are necessarily up to par, but back to the question of what do you do to maintain the uniqueness of downtown and you build downtown. So it's got to be the partners with the mom and pop shops. If we focus just on mom and pops and there's no foot traffic or ability for people to come to the destination of downtown, they struggle. Look what's happening with the construction going on right now. There's small mom and pop shops that are struggling. The revenue is down because there's not access to them. But that's all part of the city can't come and subsidize and say, okay, I'm sorry that there's a construction site going on next to you, so we're going to subsidize your income 25%, during this period of time.
Right.
But if the private sector comes in and says, hey, we're building this, we're causing this issue, and we will help partner with you during your hard times, then that's a conversation they have to have on their deal, with how they interact. And that's called good partnershiping with each other businesses, right, which would segue into, that's why I'm trying to establish a downtown association. We did a downtown advisory committee, but the person that was in charge of economic development, they left. So as liaison from the city, which I'm pushing it, but I'm not the economic expert. So I can't facilitate the meeting. I can't give all the details and the minutia of how economic development works within a city, nor should I. If you want to talk public safety, I'll do that all day. But I'm just trying to find people that want to come and partner again with the city, and bringing bigger, larger businesses is going to be a hard thing just because we don't have the land to do it. So most of the time it is just one person decides their business, they either go out of business or they just take their business. So you bring in a new business into that footprint. So it's not like we're bringing new business in. It's just a different owner is bringing their model in, from sandwiches to cookies or something like that, or flowers to books or whatever, or anything like that. So it's the conversation, Matt, and again, the partnership that we have to reestablish. So we have to herd the cats, if you will, into one entity, sit down and have a conversation about what's working effectively for you, what's not. Every business, like I said, 4 years ago, I've got a bag of business cards. And I said, I actually put a sheet together, said, what are your needs and what are your wants and what's the pros and cons of being in downtown Eagle? Most of them didn't have time to answer. They said, you give me a quick answer. Sorry, Brad, I'm busy. Right. I said, I respect that. I know. just good luck with your business, and I said, here's my card. If you have any concerns, let me know. People are too busy to do that. Right now. So we have to be proactively out talking to the businesses. But I certainly want to have, like I said, the welcome mat out for potential businesses who want to come here. I know there's been businesses who want to come here. I don't have the reasons why they didn't get to come into Eagle. Sometimes you got to remember, the council sometimes is like the mushrooms in the closet. We're only brought out to vote and to do things that are the business of the public on a council meeting. So.
Now, you mentioned this earlier. You said you found out after the fact that some businesses did want to come here and they were told no. You don't know who they were told no by. So their business model, their intention to come, was not expressed to the council in a town council meeting. It was just, you found out after the fact. They were like, well, we were told we couldn't come in.
Well, absolutely. That is a fact, that I did not know these things until after the fact. There's some businesses that did want to come into Eagle, and they, for some reason, I don't know where it came from, but they're not here. And I didn't have an opportunity to vote on it or have a discussion or any conversation whatsoever. I found out after the fact that 3 viable businesses wanted to come here. I don't know who did it. I don't know the timing of it. All I know is that's the fact. And so you'll have to research and find out who said no to them and why. That's all I could say about that, because I need to stay to the facts. I do know that's a fact, but I don't know the details of why.
And this might be privileged information. Do you happen to know what the businesses were?
I know a couple of rumor businesses, but I'm not going to disclose it till I have the actual fact.
No problem. Yeah. I'm just curious, because I did speak with Mayor Pierce a few days back, and he was saying, hey, In-N-Out wanted to come, and we said, all right, but you got to make In-N-Out look this way. I like In-N-Out. Yeah, and he also had brought up a good point, which I thought was astute, which is, look, you don't want to be the first In-N-Out. And like, why? And he said, well, because you don't want everyone from the surrounding areas to be flooding into Eagle and then leaving. I mean, you're talking about an enormous traffic problem.
I want their revenue, though, Matt. I want that revenue. It's on a highway, okay? And you design it for the In-N-Out purposes. I want those dollars coming here. I don't want those tax dollars going to Meridian or Boise. I want us to capture those tax dollars. So to worry about the traffic flow in there, you model the entrance and the exits appropriately to get the traffic in and out. So I'm very much opposed to that stance. I think you bring businesses in. The whole purpose of having business in your community is to provide local services for your people and to generate the revenue and the taxes they bring. In-N-Out is a very popular business. The people that live in California absolutely know all about it. People coming from out of state, what's so big about In-N-Out? Okay, it's a subjective taste. Okay, if you like it, you like it. But to turn away revenue, no way. I want that revenue. I want every car that goes through that line to be paying taxes back to the city. Absolutely.
Gotcha. And again, a great point there. Talk to me about managing residential developments, because there's Valnova, which again, you're saying was annexed in and, well before your time, but Avimor was distinctly your time. Now, it's my understanding that there are 2 votes that have to go through to annex in an area. So you have the initial vote, which I believe you were the lone dissenting voice on. You didn't want to let it in. But after the facts and findings, there was another vote to solidify everything, and you did vote for Avimor. So walk me through this. Everybody talks about Avimor being a difficult decision. But it's hard to understand what's difficult and what they're specifically referring to. So you, again, initially said no, and then you said yes. Talk to me about that.
Okay. I said no, and I said no. Okay. No is no. Okay. When you have on your consent agenda the facts and findings to bring through on the consent agenda, if it's not legally written up, then I would oppose it. The vote's already been done. That ship has sailed. Okay.
So the initial vote is where
my decision was made, to not annex in Avimor.
Okay, and then with the facts and findings, your vote was just, okay, this facts and finding is legally and appropriately done, but my vote, so that vote wasn't to bring in Avimor, that was literally to acknowledge the facts and findings.
Absolutely. I mean, see, that's the difference. You could twist that, right? You could spin that and say, no, he's wishy-washy, he voted 2 different ways. No, legally, you have to look at what are the facts and findings from what Avimor presented true and legal. Yes.
Okay, so that was your vote. Is this true and legal? Yes, this is true and legal. Do you want Avimor? No, I didn't, and I still don't.
Absolutely.
But my vote for yes is, yes, I acknowledge that these facts and findings are true and legal. To vote no in that situation would not have been to say, I don't want Avimor. It would be to say, what is presented in me here is not true and legal. These are 2 different things.
And then I would have said no to that as well. Wait, I found some stuff that's discrepancies in the facts and findings. I can't vote for this. Okay.
Gotcha.
That was the legal part to assure that everything was done appropriately in their facts and findings.
So there was really only one vote on, do you want Avimor
annexed into the city?
And you said no. Okay, now that is a unique position that not everybody is either not presenting or not being clear on. So talk to me then. So your vote was no, and it was always no, even though you had to acknowledge that the facts and findings were true and accurate. Talk to me about why you said no.
Because we're not ready. Infrastructure-wise, a lot of stuff that's going on up in Avimor right now, they had to do widening the highway, doing interchange. That was all regardless if they stayed in the county or came into the city. There was no special conditions coming into the city in their development agreement that said, if you annex into the city, you have to widen that road up there. No, that's all ITD, Idaho Department of Transportation. Their dealings with them for the widening of the road, because the growth out there would cause a need to expand the roads. Okay, had nothing to do with whether they annexed in or not. My voice, if you listen to the excerpts of the conversation when we were making the vote, one, I listened to the people. Okay, the people said no. We are elected we're representing the public. We're not representing our own decision. We get the information, and that helps us base our decisions on all the information. But the biggest part of it is you really need to have an understanding of what the public wants happening in their community, because we're representing them. We're their only representation for the city right now. So when you have over 300 plus people walk in to a public hearing and say, we do not want Avimor, you can't assume the rest of the population was all for Avimor. Okay, that's not realistic at all. So the majority of the voice they came and said, we're not ready, we don't want it. A lot of people had their own reasons for it. My thing is, we're not ready for it. It's like when you add another child to your family and you weren't financially ready for it. You have to deal with it, and you're gonna love the people there. You're gonna love the baby or whatever, the same as anything else. So now we've brought this new baby, if you will, into our family, and we have to deal with it. We're not financially ready to deal with it, and public safety certainly isn't ready to deal with it. Your response times, back to law enforcement, a code 3 response is with a 4-minute. You have to have 4 minutes to get code 3 to someplace. We just shot that out of the water. There's no way you can get a unit to Avimor and Valnova and Fred Myers all within 4 minutes of each other now. If you're at one place, you can't get there. It's physically impossible.
Sure.
So the only option to do that is increase your service levels so you have more officers that are able to take care of the emergencies in all of those other areas when they happen. Okay? But back to the vote, it's an absolute vote. The people will say, why did you vote in terms of when there was reconsideration came our way? My opinion is I read all the information there, and some of it was not correct. So I said, I can't vote for something that's not correct.
So when the reconsideration came out, all of the affidavit portion of it, essentially the facts were not all accurate. So you couldn't vote for that thing because you're like, this is not.
When you say a property is not contiguous to a city, I can't argue. I can't fight that. I just want facts and honesty out there, Matt. If it's incorrect or it's not across the board 100%, what's my option? To turn a blind eye and go, okay, I'll go with it because everybody else wants it. No, I have to be factually straight with my own character, my own ethical and moral values, and that's why there's discrepancies in my votes.
So what you're saying is when the reconsideration came around, if the reconsideration said something like lacking first responders or response time or infrastructure's not there, whatever it is, you would have been in support of that reconsideration because there's a fact there that you could have backed.
If there was facts I would only back the facts.
Sure.
So if there were facts in there, and I'd probably have to go with line item.
Sure.
Item.
I don't mean to pin that on.
No. That's okay. I mean, and I willingly answer that question. Whatever segments of those legal, the jargon or the literature or whatever, you have to be factual with it. I mean, you just have to say, okay, is A meet A? Or is A meet Z? No, if A's meeting Z, I'm not going to vote for A. Right. So that's just it. But we've just explained why my vote for Avimor was no.
Right.
The main thing is the public said no, so I heard the public. Okay, that's the biggest thing.
I have a question on this, and I don't mean to. I realize I keep interrupting you. I apologize.
It's conversation.
I guess so. In the public comment, there were lots of people that showed up. You said, 300 people show up and the majority of them say no. I've heard numbers up to like 90 to 95% of people that physically showed up said no. Mm-hmm. Other people have said yes. Now you say 300 people, the majority of you don't want it, but we have to listen to the whole of Eagle when we make this decision. Mm-hmm. What mechanism did the council have to essentially poll or find out public sentiment outside of the actual public hearing? Like, was there a survey done?
No.
Was there because again, people have said in defense, well, we have to listen to everyone, not just you guys. Well, how were they listening to everyone else? Was there another, town hall?
Yeah.
Or was there, and so no survey, no town hall, no mass data collection where they're like, okay, we know 10,000 people in Eagle, 60% of them wanted Avimor based on this information. Was there something like that?
No, there was no survey out to the public because that's out of the process. Okay, if private groups want to do their own, surveys, I mean, they have very much power to do that, and they could do whatever. The thing is, we had a public hearing, and that's a governmental process that takes place, and that's your opportunity to come and express your pro or con to this. Okay, if you don't show up, we can't force you to have, you tell us what you think about Avimor. I'm asking, we're demanding you tell us. We can't do that. So, but we provide the opportunity at a public hearing. That's your time to come up and express your concerns or support or a pro or con to anything, any development that goes on out there. That's your time to come and speak. And voting is your time to come and speak for whoever you want in leadership. So if you don't do that, I mean, there's no mechanism for the government agency to go out and do that. You may see certain individuals putting out a poll out for certain topics, but there was not one for this. This is their opportunity was the public hearing.
So outside of the public hearing, the government of Eagle does not did not utilize a mechanism to get public sentiment. So outside of the public hearing, when people say, well, we have to listen to the whole population of Eagle, the individual council people would have literally had to have just private conversations, like one at a time with people. And there were not large town hall meetings or something that you're aware of where,
we didn't have a town hall meetings on that. If there's conversations that have coming up at town halls, because it's kind of an open forum. You can come and talk about whatever you want. We answer accordingly, unless it's some legal matter or personnel matter that we can't talk. That's executive session information, but everything else is fair game for the public to understand, because we are the government. We work for them.
Now, to be clear, Mayor Pierce didn't have a vote on this, right? He only votes in a tie.
Okay,
correct.
Votes, and then you always have an opinion. The answer is correct. Okay, the council makes the votes. The mayor's position breaks a tie if there is a tie.
Sure.
But when you have your voice as the mayor and you're influencing and having the opportunity to give your reasons why you want a certain thing, whether it's project or whatever, the public very much listens to what the mayor's comments are. So he has the ability, or she has the ability as the mayor, to give their opinion on anything we're discussing in the government. And then that's usually prior to the vote. So then you make your decision based on that. If you want to be swayed by conversation, or do you stick to the facts and you vote for what information's in front of you, which is how I vote. I take ample notes. Every comment that comes up to us, I'm taking a note on their name and what they said, and then make an evaluation of what's valid and what's invalid. I mean, there's a lot of people they're frustrated, so they want to come up and say their 3 minutes of frustration, which is their right. It's absolutely their right to come and say whatever they want. Except there's some parameters.
But you need, to and again, not to invalidate people's frustrations. I think what you're saying is essentially, look, there are formal considerations that we should take into account, and then I think everybody's experienced somebody who's just frustrated. And it's like, I understand you're frustrated, but that's not necessarily that your frustration doesn't have direct bearing on the decision-making process.
And we have to go with what the law allows us to do as well. I mean, that's what the facts and findings are all about, right? I mean, so you have it's due process through the whole thing. You listen to the people bring their application in, and you listen to their presentation. Then you listen to the staff's presentation. Then you listen to the public comment. Then you close the public comment. Then you deliberate amongst yourselves. And that's when the mayor, they have the opportunity to say their piece, which I will very much want them to say exactly what they're thinking and why. But it does have an option for influencing the vote.
Right. Because
they're giving information. And if other council members are in accord or agreement with that, then the direction he or she doesn't have to vote, because he's already made his case or her case to make sure that the vote goes in accordance with his philosophy or her philosophy.
Now, planning and zoning also recommended not annexing in Avimor. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
So planning and zoning didn't want it. The 300-ish people that came in for public comment, the majority of them didn't want it. And again, I heard the number was 90 to 95%. There was no formal mechanism no formal mechanism was used outside of that to poll the whole of Eagle.
Yeah, we did not take taxpayers' money and put a survey out to every citizen.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yet it still passed. Like, what benefit does Avimor coming into Eagle present to the prior existing citizens of Eagle that I'm missing? Because I haven't heard, Mayor Pierce did say, it was a tough decision. It's like, okay. And again, it's my understanding he doesn't have a vote. Now I understand you're saying he has an opinion. Fine. So I didn't really want to press him on that. It's like, well, you didn't even necessarily vote. So when you say it was a tough decision, you weren't the one that had to decide. So you did, though. What have you seen that has been presented or was presented by whoever on the council or the mayor or the public or the developer that Avimor entering into Eagle benefits the citizens of Eagle?
Some of it, I'm not going to say, I'm just not going to answer that question on that part. But
you voted against it, so yeah. I'm not trying to get you to plead their case.
No. But the point is that there was different philosophies, different opinions. you have to look back to what may have promoted those existing council members to vote that way. You'll have to dig a little bit deeper into the history behind why they're in office and their supporters. I can't answer that for them. I can only answer for the people that support me, and the reasons for me, like I said before, why I voted against Avimor. If you listen to the video, I said not never, not now, because we weren't ready for that extra child coming into the family. Okay.
Right.
So I would have said, let's just wait. We already brought one child in on Valnova that we have to deal with. And that's a 35-year project, just like they're a 35-year project with I've heard 6,500 residents to 8,600 residents. We'll see. I know Valnova can only do 500 initially until we have a secondary means of ingress and egress on a road for public safety matters and everything like that. Sure. I'm not real sure. I don't want to get into, like I said, some of the details. My stance was we were not ready for Avimor for another influx of residents. As soon as we annexed them into the city, the deficiency for law enforcement immediately hit, because that means that the responsibility no longer fell on the unincorporated sheriff's department. It became incorporated Eagle Police Department's responsibility. So they were no longer dispatching a county unit, which gets into the mud and really confuses people. But Eagle Police are responsible for the Avimor that are annexed in, the citizens up there annexed in right now, not county sheriff's department.
Right.
So
which means that if there's a call, it goes directly to the police department first. And of course, everybody tries to share the burden if there are other
there's
calls.
an emergency,
right.
They're all going to fill with each other and support what's going on. The thing is, that was my catalyst for, wait a minute, we're not ready yet. We don't have the bedroom for Avimor. If you're looking at the child analogy,
sure.
We haven't got their bedroom prepared yet. We don't have the budgeting for them yet. We don't have their clothes yet. We don't have their food source yet. I mean, you can kind of use it in a family setting and kind of, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, you just don't have the services and resources
we're not
to
ready.
do it.
That's all it was. It's like, that's why I said not never, not now. But also the secondary part of my conversation and my vote, people forgot to listen to that part. It says, what do we do with the 35 projects we already have on the books in the flats to take care of? We have a lot of infill projects that have been going on right now, and we've diminished the volume coming into the projects. If you wanted 1,000 homes, guess what, Matt? You're not getting 1,000 homes. You're going to get 750 homes. Well, that's a huge reduction. It's almost 25% reduction in the initial request that you had in. So did the city do a better job of reducing the amount of dwellings coming in? Absolutely, because we've reduced the size. We've done a number of projects where they wanted X and we said, no, you have to do Y. And then we just had one large development coming off Palmer Road between Beacon Light and Floating Feather. They offered a 35-acre park. They offered grounds for an elementary school. But they did want higher density on the strip. They're calling them duets now instead of duplexes. But for focusing on, probably senior housing. It's not senior housing, but the opportunity for seniors to be able to live and have a downsize there. They don't need a big yard anymore and stuff like that. So providing a balance there, that project was good. Okay, but one of the other projects to the south of that, on the other side of Legacy near Highway 44 in Palmer, I voted against a 400-unit project there because it brought in high density for townhomes and other townhomes, basically 121, I think, townhomes, and the balance of the 400 homes were single-family detached houses out to Palmer Road. If anybody is in that area drives Palmer Road, they know it's a 2-lane old farm road. They can't hold the capacity for all the development that's coming in. And the people who live in Legacy, people who live in Syringa, Lilac Springs, and Homestead over in that area, they all need to travel out there. So what you've done is you bottlenecked up a road going out to a highway, and I'm sitting behind you and going, hurry up, Matt, go. And you're putting you in harm's way because you're stressed about getting out of the traffic flow. So I voted no on that project because, wait a minute, now we're putting high density out in that set of the west side of the neighborhoods. I couldn't be in favor of that.
That again, back to the house analogy, it's like the hallway is too small for this many people to travel up and down.
Yep.
So
any analogy we kind of want to look at, I've talked about, the Kool-Aid, issue where you have a pitcher of water and you put your packet of Kool-Aid in, and it's all fine. It smells, tastes, and looks like Kool-Aid.
Right.
You start getting more people, which is the water. You start diluting it. Pretty soon, initially it was kind of Kool-Aid, but it has no characteristic of what Kool-Aid was. No taste. It's all watery down, and it's going everywhere now. We can't contain the 1 gallon pitcher we had it in. It's all over the table now.
Right.
And so you can use different analogies to reference those
Kool-Aid's
things.
probably better than my hallway analogy. But
It's okay,
I
but
gotcha.
but it all fits. It all fits. So
then we have a real attempt to decrease density, to not only continue with the aesthetic that people in Eagle appreciate, but also to stretch the services. Because, if you start adding 1,000 or 2,000 homes instead of 750, then you have more taxing of the resources there, obviously, and you have more people stressing the system. And that, again, the 750 does back up the aesthetic and kind of the style that people have really enjoyed and things about Eagle.
Right. Yeah. And when you look at the density ratios, when you're saying density, you have obviously agricultural, but you do ranchettes, you can do estates, which are open space, and then you get into the resident R1s, or one house per acre. R2 is 2 houses per acre, and so on and so forth. You get up into the 8s, 9s, and stuff. That's high density. That's multiple houses. When you add multiple housing to a component, if you have emergencies, it's not just an officer or a fire engine or ambulance shows up to. You're showing up to the building of a fourplex, for example.
Sure.
You go to you go to Unit A for your emergency. Well, Unit B, C, and D also have emergencies, so you can't ping pong your services to those other. So you have to, when you bring in high density, you have to have ratios that can accommodate all their needs as well. But you're not going to have an officer and a firefighter at every house. I mean, that's not realistic. On every corner, you can't put, every parent wants a police car out at the schools, during school, saying to keep the traffic down. They're doing the best they can with their level, but they have to prioritize. They have to be in the right position to accommodate the response times. It's a strategy, and I'm not going to micromanage professional law enforcement. Okay, fire service, EMS, that was my world. I'm not going to micromanage what they do and how they do their day-to-day operation. That's called strategic strategies and tactics. We're going to let them do their thing. They're the professionals. Let them do their thing. Our thing is we can only support them in 2 realms. Go get them, guys. Back the blue, or whatever you want to say, with that verbal support. But when you're in a government agency, you have an opportunity to physically, financially support them. Right. That's the realm I'm preaching right now, is we need to bolster up the services so our citizens maintain their quality of life, not only for today, but in the future. So we have to have those 5-year strategic plans in place. We don't have one of those. We're looking at the comp plan for everything. And remember, the comp plan is just a guide that people put together. It's not law. It's a guide, because a lot of developers will say, well, we're just going to your comp plan and we're developing as what your comp plan says. That's all well and good, because it gives them a guide. Okay, you said I could do R3s in here per the comp plan. But we come back and we go, you know what, Matt, you can't really do R3s anymore. We can't sustain that R3. So you're going to have to squeeze it down to R2s. And we have 20% open space. What's 20% open space? Now, you look at up in the hills, and I'll segue into that.
Sure.
There's a lot of open space. People have said 50% open space. We're providing all this open space for the community and everything. A lot of it's not viable development land anyhow. The slopes are over 25% grade. I mean, all kinds of different examples that you can use. Thing is, let's slow down. Let's take what we have and develop that and make a reassessment of our city. Let's see where we're at after that. Once we get to that stage, we're okay, we're good. Valnova and Avimor, they're already in. They become part of our family now. So how do we accommodate the services levels that they're needing as well? I can't just say, hey, I'm against the development of Avimor, so good luck, citizens up there. I don't care if you get any service or not. No, they're part of our service needs area now. So we have to find a solution to the problem with them. And I want them to know you're just as much part of our city now because you're in there than anybody else. But what I'm saying is let's slow things down. That's a long-term development. That's going to be happening for years. And
decades.
Yeah, the decades at 35-year projects. But I'll be gone by then. I just turned 65 on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day it is.
Whatever day.
Monday, I think I'm 25. Yeah, 25th. But irregardless of that, I think we just have to look at it from not only a growth issue, but an economical stability issue as well. And if we're taxing, we can't rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
We can't do that. So we have to be very frugal with our resources, but we also have the option as a council and mayor to reallocate these general funds to wherever line item we think is needed for our community. And for me, I want to bring it up to the needs of the community with the prioritizing of the appropriate tax dollars for public safety.
Gotcha. Now, talking about allocating tax dollars, the employees at the City of Eagle have grown considerably over the last 4 years, as has the budget to pay said employees. Some of that, it's my understanding, has been efficiencies and bringing things in-house, like landscaping. That was one thing that Mayor Pierce did say. He said, well, look, we were spending $400,000, landscape contractor taking care of this stuff, and then we just brought it in-house, and we got it down to $200,000. And great, that makes sense. But that's
and
just
landscaping companies are for profit. You got
Sure.
to remember, so
100%.
they're gonna jack up the price, especially for deep pockets like a city.
Sure.
So of course they're gonna gouge.
yeah, and they
that,
got to make
their
a
dollar.
profit. That's
Yeah,
totally fine.
It's profit driven.
But do you feel that the city of Eagle is getting the benefit, the citizens of Eagle are getting the benefit from all of those increased employees and that increased budget? Do you think that was appropriately spent?
Well, I know over the last budget before the 23 budget, we increased our staffing model by 20 staff members. We went from 63 to 83.
And that was just the 23 budget.
Yeah, the 23 budget. And all of those positions have not been filled. And some people have left. So we have deficiencies on people leaving. And my thing is, I want you to stay. I mean, we've invested in you. You know the system.
Sure.
I want you to stay. I want to do everything in my power to give you the confidence that you're working in a great environment. You really love coming to your job, and you're happy with what you're doing, and you're providing a service. So that's my number one thing for staff. We did give them a 6% increase in pay a couple of budgets ago, and that gets absorbed quickly, right? Sure. Economics and the recession era type stuff. So you're trying to always balance the quality of people you can get. I feel very confident that the competency that we have right now in our staff is there. I think we have people that are in the right positions. I want to keep them there, but we lose viable people. Our planners. I don't want a planner to leave. This is the time when we're growing. We need people
All
that
hands
know
on
their
deck.
they know their job, but we know how to do that. So the economic development department, I've been stressing this already. I really wanted them to stay. I wanted the director to stay and have a viable economic development department. Right now we have a specialist that's under the mayor. I don't think that's the right position. I think they need to be. They're one of the cornerstones of bringing in value in the economics to our community. So I think they're a very important role in the revenue generating of our city. So that position I would look at a little bit differently. Of course, public safety has already been talked about a lot, but in the inner workings of the city itself, we need the clerk, we need the treasurer, we need the IT, we need the planning and zoning people. We need all of those positions. And as we grow, if we have deficiencies in the building department, all of these people that do the inspections and everything, if they're getting stretched so thin that they can't do their job the way they really want to do it, that means we're putting too much stress on the system as it is. So we have to slow things down. We had projected 350 permits this year, new construction permits coming in. October 1 starts the new fiscal year. We're not even at 250. So what the revenue that we assumed that we were going to be generating, we're deficient again. So we're down. So we have to look at. That's why I'm saying that, Matt, we need to restructure the general funds to the proper line items out there, we may have to redo this whole thing, And the thing is, back to partnerships, the stakeholders that are in place for these things, like I said, the school districts and all the other districts, they need to have a seat at the chair at the table when we're making these discussions. They just can't come in and talk to planning and zoning or the mayor or whatever. I want everybody to say, look, there's this 500 unit project coming into us. I want you all to come and give us your opinion on it. I know they're busy, so they can't be doing this. And most agencies just write a letter saying, yes, it meets whatever, or no, it doesn't. I haven't seen one from the school district saying, yes, it meets, we're able to sustain the efficient, we're able to sustain the increase of the children that want to come into our community. Our
without
school
any
district.
modification or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So it puts pressure and burden on other agencies. When we say yes to projects, it has an effect on all of these other agencies, because now they're going, I don't have the funds. So what do we do? Raise your taxes? Would you have to raise your taxes to accommodate the deficiencies? What I'm saying, in the city, we need to take a stronger look at our budgets, and we need to allocate appropriately. And when we have public hearings for the budgets, which are all open public hearings for the budgets, we don't have any citizens show up. I want to hear from them and say, hey, I want my tax dollars put here, or I want my tax dollars reallocated over here. Nobody comes and gives us any comments. Usually they might get one or two at the most, but usually there's nobody in there. I mean, and sometimes, granted, to get government flowing, we have the meetings on a Thursday at 3:00. Okay, I'll get it. Not everybody can come to 3:00 the meetings, and that's why we video everything, that we're legally responsible to do. But there are people out there that are retired or have time off, or they know what's going on, that I would like to hear from them and say, we heard from a lot of people via email, phone call, and the public hearings about different things. They'll email us all the time. I don't like this. Why are you doing that? This doesn't make sense. Explain this, and I get back to every one of them, unless it's some legal thing that I tell them this is under legal authority. And our staff does a really good job of screening the stuff that we're not allowed to talk about for us. But some of it still comes through, and so you got to tell them, look, I'm not. It's in litigation, or it's an active application. I can't talk to you about it.
Sure.
Okay. So, but you can write whatever you want, but I just can't respond and interact with you on that until the appropriate time.
Gotcha. So again, a lot there, but it sounds like what you were saying is going from 63 to 83 is really a function of the city itself is being stressed. And you can see that in that people are leaving, right? Mm-hmm. They're getting overworked. That creates further stress on the remaining people. So to get to a point where you invest in a certain employee, say a planning person, you invest in them, you have to give them the appropriate amount of work and not stress them too hard. Mm-hmm. And that's why you guys have to add additional teammates essentially. Right. to
and we have active applications out right now for some positions. Okay, we're down a planner. The person that was in charge of Avimor, the planner that we're working on that, they left. They're no longer here. So one of the other planners, guess what they have? Both projects to deal with. That's a tax. That's a taxing entity there, right. And it's just by the fact that this person is a high quality person and they could balance these things because they're so knowledgeable in their job, that they're able to kind of keep everything in the air, all the balls in the air right now. But if one other thing happens, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. What do you do when you've taxed that? I don't want people to leave because they're overburdened or too many responsibilities are put on them. So that's that reallocation of funds and putting things appropriately in the right slot to facilitate where our priorities are. You don't want directors of a department answering phones.
Right.
We have that happening. So, I mean, that's not productive and that's not their job or their role. So,
right. Understood. A difficult position that the city kind of finds itself in. Talk to me about the senior center.
Okay.
Right. Because, and it seems sad all the way around, but obviously there was a senior center and an Eagle Senior Center organization started a long time ago, and that the seniors have, and the city of Eagle in general has greatly benefited from. And the city council did vote to terminate their lease and tell them they had to find somewhere else to go. And in fact, it sounds like there were some lawsuits involved as well. So to the extent that you can answer, because I understand it gets tricky, help me understand that position.
Well, being the liaison for the senior center last year, and I volunteered for that because now, I mean, I've been a senior for a while, but I guess technically for 10 years now. But I had a vested interest in the seniors to begin with, because a majority of my emergency calls that I had to go to when I was in the fire service was seniors. I mean, just health deterioration. So a lot of medical calls to them. And so I have a soft spot in my heart for seeing their needs met. Okay, so we get into the situation with this particular event going on right now with the senior center. It's just finalized its litigation. Okay, and so the lawsuit's over last Thursday, and the city won on this. But here's the deal: at no time did we, and I'm speaking for myself and my vote, did we ever want to shut the doors on the seniors, cause them any disruption in their service abilities, and to not provide an opportunity for them to come and recreate or have them transported to their needs and everything like that. That is not what this was about. This was about a facility that by a nonprofit was leasing the senior center community center for $1 a year. And that's great. That's all good.
Great.
Harmony, no problem there. The next step was that they came to us during a budget hearing a couple of years ago and wanted some financial assistance. And they said, we will have to close our doors if we don't get some kind of financial assistance. Well, what are we going to do? Tell the seniors, sorry, we're going to close the doors because you can't afford it and get out? So what we did is we allocated some funds for them because we were told that they had no money. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is... So
the senior center organization said, we have no funds.
Yeah.
We need money.
And they brought P&Ls. They didn't bring a budget to us. They brought profit and loss sheets and stuff. And there was a lot of difference between... Valley Regional Transportation was in charge of the bus services for them. The senior center bought 2 buses for their own service needs and hired their own people to transport our seniors to all of the area services they needed and stuff. Unfortunately, somebody died in one of those buses. It was a tragedy in itself, but right away, cease and desist all services, so let's stop what's going on. We have to, and Valley Regional said, no, we're pulling out. I mean, we can't, we're going to provide bus services for our seniors, which is totally fine. That's good. But
so what you're saying is the senior center had essentially contracted with Valley Transportation. So the senior center purchased the buses and then gave them to Valley Transit to operate.
Yeah, they were servicing we hired the bus drivers, the senior center to transport the citizens around.
Gotcha.
So the incident happened, things got stopped. The city decided to terminate the contract with the nonprofit, not the seniors themselves, the nonprofit that they were under.
Okay, so why is that?
Because there was a legal issue with and the city was also involved with it in a claim. So we needed to back out and let the process do that. And we said, well, let's provide the services for them through our Parks and Recs department, and so we don't have any disruption in service. But then there was a time frame in the middle that we had to figure out who owns what thing, the things inside the building. Who owns what? So you have to do an inventory. Well, there was a discrepancy of who owned what or whatever that said. So everybody said, just stop and we'll just reassess. So there was a period of time, that a few days, that we need to readjust what's going on. The level of service we provided busing for the people, their Meals on Wheels, their ability to come and play their card games and have their entertainment and lunches. none of that. Those services were never interrupted except for as a small segment of the reassessed portion to figure out who has what property inside the building.
And
So
is it your understanding that the city owned any of the property inside the building?
there was to my understanding, the city owned some property in there, and then the nonprofit owned some property in there. So my thing was, let's just maintain the service levels for the people. But if there's money that we had to provide for them to maintain their services, and we find out they actually did have money, then it's my responsibility to make sure that the taxpayers get that money back from them. Because if they had money, which the findings were, there must have been some money, and this is in the legal side, so I don't want to be too deep into it, even though
Yeah, and again, I don't want you to.
Yeah, but that's my knowledge. That's what my vote was for. Is that I want to make sure that we maintain the level of service at a high quality for the seniors that are in that facility, and if we have a nonprofit going in there, what's to make the open Pandora's box to other nonprofits wanting to take taxpayers' dollars to make sure they're solvent in their thing? It's a slippery slope right there. So my thing was, let's stop. My personal vote, let's stop what's going on. Let's get the taxpayers' dollars back. Let's make sure we're providing the high level of service and quality for the seniors in there, and move forward.
So again, to be clear, your position with getting the money back is, listen, I'll give you $100,000 if you tell me you don't have $100,000 and you're going under. But if I give you $100,000 and then I found out you actually had $100,000 in your bank account, you got to give me that money back. Like, I'll come to you in an absolute emergency, not a temporary budget deficit.
Correct, and that's my stance right there. And I'm glad you eloquently explained it a little bit better than I did. Because it's hard right now, because I don't want any harm coming to the nonprofit. I don't want any harm coming to the seniors. I don't want any hardships coming to the city, because when we're responsible for the tax dollars of our citizens, that's our primary responsibility, not to the needs of a nonprofit. Because if the Boy Scouts
regardless
of
who the nonprofit is servicing, right? Like, I understand what you're like. Look, I have nothing against seniors, and and not only that, you're very sympathetic to their situation. But again, if you're saying there's a nonprofit that represents a financial situation that then you take the City of Eagle taxpayers' dollars to fund, right, to back them up as a backstop, but then realized there was some wiggle. They hadn't exhausted all of their immediate resources.
Yeah. And we didn't find that out till later, obviously. But I'll use the analogy again. The Boy Scouts of America come in and say, you just gave another nonprofit money. We want $100,000 for the Boy Scouts of America and Eagle. It's a slippery slope, Matt. All of a sudden now we're the bank for all nonprofits. You can't go there. You can't do that. And that's not right. And that's not good representation of the taxpayers' dollars. So I absolutely want the money back into the city's coffers for that. Even if it was a mistake. My thing is, if people are out there making mistakes, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it and see if we can remedy it, not just go to
let's make it right.
Let's just correct the problem, and move forward.
That's it.
Kind of a simple world, right?
Understood. There has been a lot going on with trying to add services like parks, right? Mm-hmm. And West Park was it sounds like a big deal. It was something that was purchased previous administration, and then it appears that it was decided that was a not great location for it, and that there were downsides to it. Other people have said that the neighbors didn't mind already because they were already used to some noise coming from the school. What's your position on West Park? Was it an appropriate, because again, the city of Eagle and the citizens of Eagle need recreational space right now. Mm-hmm. And it is my understanding that West Park was very, very much ready to go and provide additional kind of pressure relief valve. Kids could ride their bikes there. People could go and use it. Dog park, the whole bit. Do you think that it was appropriate to take a step back to sell West Park, get the benefit of the revenue, by the way, sell West Park at a profit. So that's good, right?
Well, and cities aren't designed to make profits on it. You just, whatever monies are addition to it, you have to reallocate it into
Right.
other
It's not
parks.
like the stakeholders got to,
but nobody's getting bonuses or money like that.
But, you have $6-7 million in delta in the purchase versus sell, buy low, sell high, right? And that money is going to go back to fund other projects in the city of Eagle, right? So again, do you think it was appropriate to sell West Park and put that money towards a larger project farther out in the city of Eagle, or do you think it would have been better to hold on to West Park, develop that? It's something that's a little bit closer, and it was ready to go.
Well, I think closeness is subjective too for the people that live in the area. The problem is there's millions of dollars of need to improve the property prior to, which we don't have the funds for. So you just don't buy the property. And I'll give credit to the past. I mean, I think they were trying to find solutions to a problem. We need a park on the west side. So they were reaching out and finding. So I understand the Catholic Church. We purchased it from the Catholic Church. And that at the time, I think and I don't have all the details, so I can't really get into the what and whys about that. But the reality was, the final understanding was you would have to the floating feather ingress egress lanes into the park would have to widen the road there. That costs money to design the park and build it and maintain it. That's astronomical as well. So just purchasing a piece of land, it sounds good and like we could turnkey the park all of a sudden. But if you have a dog park and some ball fields in there, and you don't accommodate, it doesn't have a walking path around for a pond, or you can watch the ducks, and you can sit down and play checkers, or you can read a book under the trees and stuff like that. That wasn't the kind of neighborhood park that was being designed. A dog park, you understand, with dog parks, there's barking, right? So there's noise issues that you have. So all of a sudden now the neighbor said, I'm okay with that, until the dogs start barking all the time, and then their quality of life is shot because they're listening to yelling and barking dogs all day, and their quality of life is down there too. The traffic in and out for ball games, the noise that comes with sports. I mean, I've been a sports guy my whole life. I understand that stuff, but you have to look at the big picture and what is appropriate for the surrounding area. And you speak about kids riding their bikes to the park. Have you ever ridden a bike on floating feather? There's no shoulder. There's no bike lane. There's no sidewalk. There's nothing out there. I don't want kids out there and facing the traffic. I mean, we already have bike clubs that ride on that road too, and I don't know why, because it's just so narrow that it's an issue. It has a safety component to it.
To be clear, there is a sidewalk on Floating Feather on part of it, but the portion you're talking about
out in front of the park, they would have to do a contiguous improvement, which obviously there would be curb gutter, but from center line into the thing, they would have to accommodate widening of the road, Floating Feather, which is a big cost, and you got to get ACHD involved. So the timing for all of their engineering, all their construction, all of their impact fee generating, that all has a factor in the component of it as well. So it's not just here's 35 acres, let's just put grass on it and put a few parking stalls in. That's not how it works. And the long-term maintenance of it, back to our public works. So there's another park that they have to facilitate for. That costs money to maintain all of that. Okay, where's the staff for that? Who's paying for that? So people need to understand that there's a lot more involved with when you design a park. For example, I want a park. I want everyone to have parks if they can have parks. But here's my deal: the developer, I'm telling you right now, build your community parks, build your neighborhood a park. So your kids can walk to your park and play. You can ride your bikes to your park and play within your development. Community parks are great, but you got to remember it has a huge tax implication on that, and all of the maintenance and the maintaining and design, review, engineering, everything that comes with it has to be assessed as well. So it's not just 35-acre park and a turnkey and you're off and running. That's not realistic.
So the bottom line is, in your opinion, you're like, look, yes, there was this initial step of acquiring a 35-acre plot of land that would have checked some boxes on the west side and whatnot. But there was so much more that was going to be involved to get that 35 acres into a park formation that had appropriate parking, appropriate ingress, egress, all of these things. And it was going to cost a lot of money. The way that it did finally work out is that plot of land was sold. There was an enormous amount of money that came out of that sale that could then fund other, in your opinion, more appropriately placed and developed parks.
Absolutely. I mean,
Gotcha.
so yeah, and that's it in a nutshell. And back again, the public does not know what's going on. They see the duck on the water, and it looks like they're just drifting. They don't know how hard that duck's working under the water with its, it's flapping away, just trying to maintain, direction and stuff. So there's a lot of undertow details in the minutia of how government works that it all looks nice and fluffy on top, but there's a lot of activity going on underneath.
You don't look that nice and fluffy on top. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I'm not a nice and fluffy person, right?
You currently are president of the town council.
Mm-hmm.
You have other things in your life, right? Like, why dive back into this? Why attempt to take the mayoral role? Like, what has happened over the last 4 years that really signals to you, hey, there are not appropriate decisions being made? And again, public safety, I think, is one that we've really covered. But what else is drawing you into this desire to run and take on more responsibility, and not just, go to breakfast and hang out?
Yeah, Matt, and I wish that was in my DNA, but this is a calling for me. This is not a job. This is not a power thing for me. I've been a servant to the public my whole entire life. My adult life has been dedicated. It's just what God put in my heart to do, just to serve people. All right. So I am not ready to quit serving people. As you know, I'm currently the fire commissioner for the Eagle Fire District, one of the three. And so very much that's my world. And so that's a natural fit. Government is a complex entity in itself, and it has peaks and valleys, and there's pros and cons. But the thing is, I bring a good ear to leadership. I bring a partnership opportunity to leadership, and I want people to be satisfied with their leadership. And when they're not, then I'm the first, if the mayor's the tip of the spear, I expect to take on the onslaught of confusion. Usually people are confused when they get mad. They don't know what's going on, and their immediate reaction is to cast blame on somebody. Okay, if you're communicating ahead of time and you're having good dialogue with your community and you're getting out information at every angle you can think of, social media is such a big platform. You don't have to wait for the Sunday news anymore, or the radio to provide a news segment for you, or the TV. You can instantaneously pretty much call somebody and get information, or you can have people inquire what's going on. I hate social media, but I love social media.
You can get a lot of information. Whether the information's valuable or not is another question.
Yeah, and you have to filter out that
Right.
and listen to what your desires are. I'm not just saying this because I want to say this, because this is my Christian influence. I respect and like every councilwoman and man up there. I respect and like the mayor. The direction of the city is a whole different entity. I think our priorities are not they're out of whack. Okay, I think we need to prioritize. We need to slow down. We need to let ourselves catch up. We have to provide, of course, public safety is the tip of the spear for me, and we also have to make sure that we're maintaining a viable revenue source coming into the community. We've kind of touched base on a lot of those little things, but a lot of stuff I can't give you details of things I don't know about. Okay, I'll give you the details that I know about and I've been educated to and I'm well versed in. But the things I'm not good, Matt, I need to be a sponge to that. I need to collect all the information, and then I'll squeeze out what is pertinent to be squeezed out for other people to understand it and learn. But right now, I just feel strongly that the direction of the city, we're just going too much too quickly, and we just need to take a breath. We need to. I'm not one to take a breath. I'm a go-getter. I'm a doer. I'm a problem solver. I want things. In emergency world, you have to solve the problems quickly.
Right.
And you have to be ready to make audible to a different direction if things mandate it that way. And you also have to be ready for the hypothetical. Public safety. I want to bring back one thing on public safety. It's a hypothetical world. You train for the worst and you hope for the best. So you're only there. It's an insurance policy. Public safety is an insurance policy. If there's a need, it kicks into gear and provides the level of service you're needed. So, but it's only hypothetical. It's in a hypothetical world until it actually happens. Until you dial 911, there's nothing happening. They're being proactive. Law enforcement is out there doing their job, being proactive, finding people that are breaking the law. They're out there as a deterrent. They're out there as a visual. They're like, don't come into our city because
Right.
we're here, we're doing business, and we're going to maintain the public safety. The fire side of it, even though we do prevention programs and try to keep people educated to what's going on, and we do inspections of buildings and stuff like that, and we do pre-planning for the community, until the alarm goes off, nothing triggers, nothing happens until the alarm goes off. So it's in a hypothetical state at that point until things actually start happening. And then it could be chaos. It's always chaos, but you kind of control chaos within, and you learn the skills. So back to tactics and strategies of public safety, you have to work in that same realm, though, in tactics and strategies in government. You have to assess what's going on, what are the needs of the public, and you provide the highest level of service for that need. You don't knee-jerk reaction. You don't just allocate, okay, there's an emergency need over here, there's emergency need over there. No, you have the established concise budgeting, the budget part that comes into play, but you make sure you're being proactively in the prevention world for future needs of the community as well. And we are growing. Whether you like it or not, those 35 projects that are on the books in the flats here right now, that equates to 8,100 more people. That puts us, near 45,000 people right off the bat. And it's like, wow, now we're really having issues. So it's going to suffer all city staffing levels, because everybody's going to be burdened and everything. And we have to do it within a realistic way of not trying to bring new taxes onto the public. I mean, obviously, no one wants to pay more taxes. So the taxes we have to be appropriate with our budgeting, just like we do with our checkbooks, or checkbooks are an old-fashioned thing now, but our budgets at our home. If your son wants the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, you can't afford it this year because they need shoes and clothes. Sorry, you're not getting that this year. Your needs are getting met before your wants. So, and as time goes on, then if we're doing things appropriately, all of those kids are going to get the need. I mean, their wants versus the need, because their needs are already met. So, and Matt, I don't have all the answers, dude. I know where to go get all the answers. I know how to partner with people. I know how to lead with respect. I know how to lead without making things confusing for the public. That's all back to communication. We have the message, and we have the receiver, and we have the sender, and that's all that's about. I mean, it's very simple. If you look at it and you break it down into what the context of civilization actually is about.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually, when you were saying that, I was thinking about some of the first very, very successful civilizations had standing armies, right,
Mm-hmm.
for all of the hypothetical. Instead of having, the army made up of farmers and
Right.
all this stuff. So when there was an emergency, they scrambled to drop the crops. But eventually people figured out, like, well, let's just keep really well-trained guys for the hypothetical. So managed chaos, right? Nobody wants to be under attack, but,
Right.
they're prepared.
Yeah. Here's another one. I have a couple of sayings, though. But you don't put your army together after you've been invaded.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So you have to be very proactive in your prevention mode of that stuff. So, and that's kind of that public safety in a nutshell. You don't wait till you don't go, oh my gosh, now what do we do?
Right.
So you don't put your army together after you've been invaded is probably the best analogy I can have for public safety.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for explaining everything. Again, I know there's so much going on, and I'm sure we could sit here and talk for several more hours on nuances of all of it. But thank you for your service so far. Who knows what's going to actually happen in the election, but I really appreciate you putting the energy out, you bringing the perspective that you have, and again, just your efforts for the city in general.
No, Matt, I just appreciate the opportunity to get in front of the public and give my perspective on how things are going. And if it's God's will, I'll be your next mayor. If it's not, we'll see what's in chapter 2 of Brad Pike's life.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. But can you still recall